So I purchased the NGK spark plugs to put in my 2012 Sea-Doo 230 SP. Got the 430 horsepower from the factory, and it's been upgraded to the 520 horsepower model. Here are the spark plugs, and it looks like the terminal unscrews on the 4339s, although all of the pictures of the 4339 show it as a with the terminal cap on that the ignition coil presses onto. So I had to make sure that the cap was removable, and the only way is to trust the stock number. The 4339s are removable, and you can see there it shows X's through the ribs and the cap, and then it shows with the cap being unscrewed. So I guess that's their way of saying that it can be unscrewed. I'm sure you can purchase these from AutoZone or something more local. I purchased mine from Riva Motorsports on Tuesday, and they arrived on Friday. So that's pretty quick, and they were only a couple dollars anyway. So I think it was a good route to go if you're in the market for the spark plugs. Here I have a tip removed from the spark plug itself. When they arrive, the first thing I thought was no, but you can quickly see that this screws off and on. So that's the key there, so that you can get the ignition coil to securely fit on the spark plug. These spark plugs are pre-gapped, so make sure you're not dumping them out, and it's always good to double check the gap anyway. A lot of people say, well, they could have been dropped, coulda, woulda, shoulda. You're really not gonna have too many issues with that, especially when you're buying them. I bought 6 of them. I have twin engines, but when they're coming in boxes like that, you could drop the box quite a few times and still be okay. It's just not likely, people are walking around with boxes of spark plugs and dropping them. Can it happen? Yes, but they're already pre-gapped. I'll probably give it a quick check and roll about my business. I'm gonna put these in tomorrow, and hopefully I have success. The reason why I'm putting in new spark plugs is because the jet ski will not hit maximum RPMs, which is 8,000 or a little bit above that, at wide open throttle when the boat is in the water. If I hook up the water hose to the boat and run it up to 8,000 RPMs, it does that without a problem. I'll let it idle for a minute or two. I'll take it up to 8,000. I'll keep it there for 2 or 3 seconds, bring it back down, let it idle for a minute, and then bring it back up to 8,000. Perfectly fine, no issues. But when I get in the water, it will only go up to 6,000 RPMs. So obviously I know that there's a load, which is the weight of the boat, that the thruster, that the thrust is going to be required to move the boat, which is greater than just hooking up a water hose and letting the impeller do its thing. I'm just having a hard time tracking down what exactly is causing these issues. The first thing people say is, you have a bad supercharger. Well, I have 2 sets of superchargers, and the set I took off, it was starting to do that, and those were fine. I couldn't spin it at all, or it was very hard to spin when I took the hose for the air intake for the supercharger off. I put my new superchargers on, and the same thing. The boost is just not there. I'm not getting past, the boost is there, I'm not getting past 6,000 RPMs in the water. If the boost wasn't there, you wouldn't get the RPMs at all, because there's no boost to do it, to do the 6,000. So it does seem like there is a boost problem, but it's not the supercharger. So I've swapped the spark plugs between the 2 engines. Same issue. I'm going to go ahead and change them out anyway. The boat has about 160 hours on it now, so the other spark plugs do have some fouling on them, which is to be expected after so much use and operation. And fouling, I don't know how natural it is, but I've never seen a spark plug in a car, any kind of car, that didn't have some type of carbon buildup on it. The next thing I'm going to do is swap the fuel injectors over from one engine to the other and see if that is the issue. And before I do that, I'm going to check the compression on all the cylinders in the engine that is acting a little funny, because that could also be an issue too, where you don't have a load and you don't need the compression, so you can run the RPMs up. But once you put the load on it, then you have issues hitting that boost, or hitting maximum RPMs at wide open throttle. So that's what I'm dealing with. That's what caused me to change the spark plugs. However, the spark plugs on the vehicle now are fine. I'm just buying myself a peace of mind here. I've already tested the fuel pump. The fuel pump is fine. I've tested the spark plugs. The spark plugs were fine. I tested the ignition coils. The ignition coils are fine. And basically by testing, I mean I put them on the motor that's running okay from the motor that's not running okay. And so far, so good. I'm just going through the processes of things that would normally go bad before I start checking wires and things like that, because my wires seem to be all right. The other thing it could be is like TPMS, throttle positioning sensor, TPS sensor, something like that. I'm actually just really looking for someone who's had this issue to give me that clue that solves the problem. However, all of the things that I am checking do lead to and can have the same issues that I'm experiencing. So I'm going to, before I install these, make sure that I put the proper material on the thread to keep them from seizing, anti-seize. Make sure I put a lot of dielectric grease over the ignition coil to keep this area water free, and I'm hoping for success in my endeavor of figuring out why I have one engine that won't hit wide open throttle and 8,000 RPMs at wide open throttle in the water. Hopefully your guys' projects are a tad easier or a tad more fun than mine.